So this is my demo day presentation on female-owned businesses on social media. So the concept of this project is basically to monitor how female entrepreneurs and influencers use social media. Since the rise of social media in the early 2000s, there's been a giant digital marketing presence, and statistically, females have really been dominating this presence overall. So I wanted to observe how they are doing this and what are some tactics that they use to make this happen for them. Through this, I wanted to look at the different types of influencers as well as the various platforms for fame and exposures used by these entrepreneurs. The goal of my project is to observe, track, and understand why female business owners, entrepreneurs, and influencers are so good at what they do, and to eventually educate others and other rising female influencers and entrepreneurs on how to do the same. So I feel like this study is necessary because I want others who are trying to take their brands digitally to be able to learn from this study. I want to show them a bunch of different things, but the 5 main reasons I'm looking to educate them on is to showcase what to do and what not to do on social media, to show them how to monitor interaction and engagement with brands and followers, to suggest marketing tactics, compare success campaigns and compare unsuccessful campaigns, and educate on how to address social, political, and environmental issues as a brand on their platforms. So far, I've done a lot of basic research on social media and women on social media. I've also done interviews. I've tracked 5 brands, which I will touch on more later on this slide. And I've done 2 surveys, the first one being very surface level and broad, that I sent out to about 100 students to get their opinions on social media usage. And the second survey is a more in-depth, specific survey on social media marketing and personal usage. So for my first interview, I interviewed 2 subjects who are students at Miami. One is a business major and one is a StratCom major. And they both have strong social media backgrounds from internships and just a passion of using social media. And from these interviews, I asked tons of questions about their usage, why they use it, what they think about different brands, etc. And I got 3 major takeaways. Major takeaways include that these 2 think that social media are a way for people to create a brand for themselves. They think that social media is constantly changing, and they think that social media heavily influences attitudes and buying across major platforms. So these are some of the findings that I got from my first initial survey. As you can see, a lot of the responses are just very general on usage, the amount of accounts they have, hours spent on the app, etc. But it's just a good way to see what I was working with and to see how millennials and Gen Z and Gen X are kind of using social media right now. So the 5 brands that I am observing right now are Glossier, Something Navy, We Wore What, We Met at Acme, and Blogilates. And the reason I wanted to look at these 5 is because it's 3 different types of brands. We have a health, wellness, and fitness brand, which is Blogilates. We have a relationships and dating advice podcast, which is We Met at Acme. And then we have 2 clothing companies, Something Navy and We Were What, and a beauty brand, which is Emily Weiss for Glossier. These are the things that I've been observing while I've been tracking these brands. I've been looking at different platforms, including Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and this is what I look at. I observe their posts, what kinds of posts they are, when they post, overall likes, comments, types of posts, how their comment section work, their partnerships, their ads, and their sponsors. So what I've been focusing more on right now is looking at the overall engagement and impressions from these posts. Because I've been tracking it for a couple weeks now, I've been going back to posts that I initially started tracking and seeing their average amount of comments and likes and engagement, so I can get a total analysis on the amount of impressions they're bringing in. I'm also looking at how they deal with responses to like issues and problems in the comments, and if they reply to those and how they do so, and if they do it in a timely manner. And then I'm also looking at how they are taking on their political and social justice stance with an election going on specifically right now. I think it's really interesting to see how brands are choosing to talk about that on their platforms. So the second survey that I set out was a more specific survey about opinions on campaigns, social media accounts, and how brands address current events, like I just stated. These are just a couple sample questions that I asked in the survey. So, because I wanted to get some information on how people personally monitor and see brands and how their opinions on them change when they speak their mind. So, because I am writing a research style paper, I am doing more of wireframes for a research paper. So, to the left right here is what I'm thinking my project will look like once it's completed. I want to have a bunch of different pages with visuals, text, and graphics to really showcase my points. And then just on the right side are some simple infographics that I've gotten from the visuals and from the survey so far. So my next steps are to continue gathering my survey responses and compare the insights. I want to keep researching brands, but I also want to research more of like kind of an intro on each brand so I can establish them at the beginning of the start of the research paper so that readers and viewers can get a familiar understanding of the background of each campaign. I also want to work to interview social media pros, whether it's coworkers, teachers, professors, connections, people, suggestions, and then I also want to try to potentially reach out to different people who have worked for the brands that I've chosen to look at. So after the demo day, I got a couple critiques and improvements, and these are the two that I really wanted to focus on because I think they would add a lot to my project. I do want to interview some female entrepreneurs at the more local level and get their views on the topics. Someone suggested that I view some like local level business owners or influencers, entrepreneurs to see how their brands are going and to also get their opinions on other brands, because this would be a really insightful way to monitor like steps and how to come up from where they are and how to become a bigger brand. And then something that I also want to do is interview people who aren't as versed on the topic, whether it be males or people who aren't very passionate with social media, to also get their opinions, because I think it's always good to have the flip side and to look at the other argument and compare that to what I'm looking at overall. So since the demo day critique in class, I've been doing more with those second round surveys. I've been continuing to send them out to monitor like responses and unlike responses and kind of take notes of those, as well as I'm focusing a lot these couple weeks on the stories on Instagram to see like if there's any correlation between times posted every day, what types of stories they're posting, what kind of engagement they're looking for, and etc. So these are just some of the 9 responses I've gotten from this week's survey, and I think it's just really interesting to see how I'm seeing more diverse data this time around than I was in the last survey because it's not as general. So I'm interested to see how it comes from in the future.